Tonight we celebrate an icon, Judge Negota, who became a president from 1984 until 1986. We are going to hear more about him. For this program, let me allow Mr. Mutse, as I just announced now, that he will be doing the opening and welcome. Chairperson.
No, thanks, Daisy. Before you cut off, and I was cut off, so all of us are cutting off. I was already on the, and I've already just welcome, but it's okay. Let me continue because I was not finished. President, thanks for your time, for making time for us. We really appreciate. Allow me, colleagues, to also acknowledge the acting president, Esetu Mangotwa. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being here. I can't see her, but I know she's going to be joining us as well. And we really thank her for being part of this particular program. Can I take this opportunity to also thank the Deputy Chairperson of the province, Ms. Tulom Sindo, so that we can be able to acknowledge her. She has some commitment that she's busy, she's currently on. And let me take also this opportunity to take this opportunity to also welcome and also acknowledge Harold Negota, one of the family members, to say thank you very much for making time. And the Negota family has always been graceful to us in also giving us an opportunity that we can celebrate President Negota. And that it's on its own, it is a privilege to us as the BMF that you are giving us one of our own that we can be able to celebrate. Can I take this opportunity also to welcome and also acknowledge Mr. Ramane Mlangapuma, who's the provincial secretary of the Ncube. He is here as one of our guests who's also going to be doing the vote of thanks. And let me take this opportunity to thank the Profco, which is the leadership of Profco that is here that made it possible, and they always made sure that they work hard for this event to come through. Colleagues, I would like to take this opportunity to say, as the BMF, we have learned it from you, Doc, President, and every time when we're reading about you, it makes us all the time to ask ourselves a question and say, are we in the right track as the BMF, especially the BMF today? Are we on the right step in following what you guys were doing? Are we still pushing the missions that you were pushing? And some of the answers of the questions that we always answer, we always tell ourselves to say, but I don't think we are where you guys are. Maybe there might be missteps where we are going, but what we want is to go back to that BMF that we used to know, of course, with the current challenges that we're facing, to say, let's make it a better BMF. Let's take it back to the BMF that was driving and pushing the ethical behavior, that we need to be the champions of championing the issue of being ethical all the time, to strive and make sure that in these corporates, we should be able to have soldiers who can be able to go out there and serve in the boards ethically and make sure that whatever it is that we are doing, we are pushing this corporate South Africa to the direction that it needs to go. And Dr. Don and President, I think time and again, don't be very far from us. You need to be closer to us so that you can be able to give us guidance. You can be able to remind us what is the DNA of BMF, what is the BMF-like type of manager. We would like to have that as the BMF, especially as the young generations that is leading the organization for now. And this, with these words, President and colleagues and those ones who are listening, I would like to take this opportunity to say this is the 4th event of George Negota lecture, and we are very excited and we are looking forward to hear what the president is going to say to us about George Negota. We know that George Negota was one of the remarkable businessmen, remarkable leader who was very ethical and who made sure that he's pushing the boundaries. And we're really looking forward to hear from a person who knows him better in person, who will be able to give us motivation to be able to continue in this particular fashion. Thank you very much, colleagues. I would like to take the last person to thank. Let me thank the program director, Ms. Daisy. Thank you very much, ma'am, for agreeing to do this thing. And I know you are capable. You'll be able to push this program the way it's supposed to be pushed. Thank you very much, colleagues, for this time. And for now, I'm going to hand it over to Daisy to say, here is your opportunity to continue the program. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you also for the welcoming remarks. Colleagues, allow me to introduce to you our keynote speaker for this 4th annual Judge Negota lecture. Don Ncube held a managerial position at Anglo-American at the time of his presidency, becoming Group Industrial Relation Consultant in 1990. During his tenure as BMF president, Don held a firm commitment to management training program. The organization positioned itself as a managerial leadership development organization. Don is a pioneering Black entrepreneur and one of the founding members of the BMF. Ncube coined the phrase Black economic empowerment, saying he has long believed entrepreneurship holds the key to resolving South Africa's challenge. He is currently the executive chairman of Badimo Gas Pty Ltd and Afro Energy, companies that are pioneers in drilling onshore on non-fracking nature gas in the province of Mpumalanga, Free State, and KwaZulu-Natal. Their core business objectives is to produce natural gas molecules and convert them into electrons, thereby producing and supplying electricity to reduce the devastation of load shedding and remove harmful polluting carbon emission in the atmosphere. President, the time is yours.
Thank you very much, Daisy. And thank you very much to Paul, and thank you to all the other listeners. I hope you can hear me. If you can't hear me, I will just switch the video and the quality of the voice will be much better. But you must just guide me if you can't hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, first and foremost, I only learned late about this, so I'm going to speak from the heart because I know George from the heart. I'm not going to speak from theory and textbooks because the things that I may have to say may not be things that are in a textbook. It may be things that we actually realize practically on the ground. Now, George was born in Louis Trichardt. He came from a very humble background, a very poor family, and as a consequence, at a very young, tender age, he had to strive, blood, sweat, and tears in order to help his family to put bread on the table and help his 5 siblings. Inevitably, he did not have the opportunity, or he had to forego the opportunity to acquire primary education. George was not a cheese boy. He was not born with a silver spoon to feed him. The deprivation of his youth induced him to have a huge appetite for 2 things. One, he had a huge and an enormous appetite for knowledge. It was almost insatiable. You cannot satisfy his desire for knowledge. He had an epic quest for knowledge, and he pursued it with vehement vigor, and acquired a stream of degrees. I'm not going to go to the list because it's inexhaustible, but it is a stream of degrees in a diverse fields, in law, in commerce, in tax, and so forth. The reason why this was the reason why he had this enormous appetite, as I said, is because he was deprived of youth, and he embraced a very important African proverb that a wise man fills his brains before he can empty his mouth, and George understood that. And so what he then did was to say he must get knowledge in education, in law, he must get knowledge in commerce, he must get knowledge in tax and in other fields. Now, not only was he driven to get education, his deprivation forced him to have a strong moral fiber. Now, his education was not abstract theory. It was education that had a basis. He went into law because he wanted to pursue social justice. He was aware of the needs of the country, that we were the majority of the blacks were disenfranchised, their land was taken, they were living in squalor and poverty. So he wanted to pursue law in order to bring in social justice. He then felt that that was not enough. He needed also to do something in the commercial field, so that his knowledge is not just about theory, but it was about practical things. It was about doing things that can create value, that can create wealth, that can create food security, that can provide health and medicine, that can uplift communities. So he became an entrepreneur. One of the things that surprised us was that George was here, he was there, he was everywhere. He was in construction, he was in gas, he was in petrol, he was in NAFCOC, he was in agriculture, he was here and everywhere. I don't know how he managed to do it. And also remember, he was self-made. So all the education that he acquired, he paid for himself. And fortunately, if I remember, the wife, Maria, who was a nurse, was the backbone of the family, while George was pursuing education, advising government on policy, and influencing the corporate sector to open up and employ and transform and transfer skills to blacks. While he was busy with that, his wife was the one who was maintaining the family, because George had this huge, vast field of endeavor, trying to fix and contribute to the new South Africa. You must also understand that he was then the president of the BIMF during the time 1984 to 1986. Now, that was actually the time when there was massive politicization in South Africa, where there was a huge intensification on the armed struggle. It is in fact in 1983, if I'm not mistaken, that the liberation movement, the MK, were for the first time able to explode a car bomb in Pretoria, which is the heart of white suburbia, white oppression. And of course, some people were killed. I think 19 people were killed, 200 whites were injured. And of course, the South African government revenged and with brutality. And they started having air raids in Mozambique, air raids in Botswana. Black political activists were killed. Some people were hanged, literally hanged. I know two brothers from Musia who were hanged at the same time. And some people were just murdered. And there was huge harassment. And of course, the government of the time tried to legitimize itself and had a constitution, which is a tricameral constitution, which was incorporating Indians and colors at the exclusion of blacks in order for them to be enfranchised. And it was in the midst of that that George was the president of the BMI. Black community, we could only fight by having stairways, boycotts, strikes. It was during that time when George was the president of the BNF. So in other words, it was not during the time of peace, stability, and prosperity. It was a time of bloodshed, of bloodbath, of people who were being killed. Each time when we went to a board meeting of the BMF, we had to be careful when we go home, because there was no guarantee that tomorrow you'll be able to come back alive. Because we always had visitors in our forums. There would be some strange cars with police waiting at the gate to see where you come from, what books you have. it was during that time that George was the president of the BMF. So it was not during happy days. It was during tough times. It was during that time, in fact, when the South African government, which was brutal, even had what is called the Nkomati Accord, where it made agreements with the Portuguese so that the Frelimo must not support the ANC, so that also there must not be support for the liberation of the ANC in Angola. And the South African government was supporting Renamo and was supporting the other party in Angola against the ANC so as to disempower and disempower the ANC. And we had to operate in this environment. An environment of boycott, strikes, stairways, bloodbaths, violence, killings, murder. It was tough. It was very tough. And then, of course, there were also glimpses of light, because it was the same years, around about 84, 85, when Bishop Tutu got the Domel Prize award, and which was now the second black man to get this award and to join Albert Ntuli. This was just to boost the morale and the support of us in the liberation movement. But you must understand, black people, you could not avoid not to be in the liberation movement. But the focus was liberation, the right to vote, the right to own land, because blacks were dispossessed of what they owned. We then felt in business because that we didn't have an opportunity and we needed a voice for ourselves. The workers on the we needed to have corporate white South Africa so that black professionals can be recognized, can be treated humanely, and then we started the BMF. Now, the idea was for us to have a voice in white corporate South Africa, but there were problems, there were challenges to make sure that we can pay the rent, the office, and the secretary in the office, and we therefore were dependent on corporate social responsibilities, which were handouts. So, but we began to develop an interest not only in management, but we developed an interest in order for us to look at how we can ourselves acquire interest in business. And that's why the BMF metamorphosed into actually becoming a business entity, because we all now started looking at having our own business. George was now involved in his own businesses. I actually myself was involved in our own businesses. Martin Sibesh was involved in his own businesses. Eric Mafula was in there. So while we were looking at enhancing and strengthening the professional capabilities and acceptance, while at the same time we're looking at how we can ourselves become businessmen in our own right, so that the focus must not just be political, it must be also in the business sector. And that is very important, because coming to today, one of the weaknesses is that notwithstanding our liberation, there is in fact a flaw and a deep mistake in that we have political CODESA, but we didn't have an economic CODESA. We had the enfranchisement to go and vote, but we didn't have the enfranchisement to own assets and to control the wealth of this country. We don't have that. To date, we are not there. And the BMF was supposed to produce these professionals who will not only go to corporates, but will themselves diversify and become the owners of assets, and they'll become the owners of resources. This is one of the things that evolved from the Black Management Forum. And in fact, the idea was that it won't just become a Black Management Forum, it will become a business forum. It will become an entrepreneurial forum. It will become a vehicle that is going to create wealth, not jobs, but create wealth. It was going to be a forum not of consumers, but of producers, that eventually we ourselves will be able to produce goods and services and contribute to the GDP of this country. That was the vision. But as I say, it evolved from just being oppressed as professionals to become entrepreneurs who can own assets. So it is for that reason that don't be surprised that George went into business. I went into business and I'm still in business today. Same with Martin Sidesho, same with a guy that we don't talk about a lot in BMF, which worries me, Ncube, who was actually the CEO of Coca-Cola. And in fact, we then asked Coca-Cola to provide an opportunity for Black people to come into the Coca-Cola business, into bottling. That's how the Bunene brothers came into that business, as an example. Now, George, therefore, had a source of leadership. But the leadership was not an abstract theoretical leadership. You know, it was not about pie in the sky, just making promises and having verbal promises and empty promises. It was leadership that was also grounded on pragmatism. So he was not a revolutionary romantic. He was not that kind of a person. He was a leadership that was pragmatic, that was realistic, that wanted to deliver basic things, deliver goods and services on the ground. That's a different kind of leadership. It was not a leadership that made promises in order to be appointed and to step into the shoes of the former oppressor. It was a leadership that wanted to liberate, and that was from the bottom up and not top downwards. So therefore, it was also a leadership that had a moral fiber. Because of your hardships and your deprivation at youth and the environment in which you are brought up, you develop a strong ethical base. So George had a strong moral fiber. He was a man of integrity and honesty. There were no scandals involved during our time. We're driven by ethics, and that was quite important. And it was for that reason that also he played a different role. At one stage, I saw him was with Michael Katz, and at one stage he was with Mutsonyane in NAFCOC, and he was involved in all other businesses. He was involved with the government in formulation of policy, trade and industry, you know, because that was the background. He was not that kind of leader that Khrushchev says political leaders who promise and have platitudes, who will promise to build a bridge when there's no river. He was not that kind of a person. He was an ethical person, strong moral base. And it is that kind of leadership that is lacking today. And I must just say that it's not just the kind of leadership that is lacking today in South Africa. It's a kind of leadership that is lacking today, chronically lacking today in the African continent. The ironies of Africa, including our continent, including our country, is that those who have got a strong moral base and a strong knowledge base are actually not leaders in government. That's the irony. And is that the electorate is used as cannon fodder, you know, where we vote and make promises, and the new leadership then steps in to occupy the seats that were previously occupied by colonialists and the oppressor. and they perpetuate that oppression and have self-aggrandizement, where it is our patronage and elite of patronage that is there to have ostentatious consumption. And the irony is that the electorate continues to elect the same leadership, and not the leadership of George's caliber. That kind of leadership is not there, not only in South Africa, but on the African continent. And we are where we are because of lack of leadership. It is the biggest fault, the biggest weakness, the vulnerability in the African continent is its black leaders. There's nothing wrong with our continent. And of course, our continent is endowed with space, land, fauna and flora, and rich sources. But as the French would say, the African continent, including South Africa, is a geological scandal. It has got gold, coal, minerals, it is, you name it. In fact, it has even got gas, which I'm now doing, and they didn't believe that it is there, and I'm doing it onshore, not offshore. It has that. But as if God is saying, I'm giving you this wealth, but I'm going to deny you something, and then it hasn't got the leadership that is there to enhance that wealth and that value in order to uplift the community. And that's why today we've got deep pockets of deprivation, of poverty, of inequality. And we don't have the leadership in this area. In this area where the BMF is, that's where there is chronic leadership. The chronic leadership is not in the economic field. We have the political rhetoric, but we don't have the economic pragmatism, which is what we're trying to do in the BMF, to say, at the end of the day, we should be able to bring back what was taken from our forefathers, bring the land back, bring the wealth back, bring health back, bring good education, bring stability. That is not fair. And because we don't have the leadership of George's caliber. I'm pleased that there is this memorial lecture. And for me, it says something else. The fact that we have this memorial lecture is indicative of the fact that people like George, who were men of honesty and integrity and ethics and a strong ethical base, are remembered. So in fact, maybe George has not passed on, he's alive, by virtue of the very fact that we can still have a memorial service to lecture and to talk about him. I must also say that George was not just George. George also had a solid, good wife, Maria, if I remember well, was a nurse who used to take care of him. Because I must be honest with you, I don't know how George managed to get all these bachelor of this, honors of this, and I know he was registered for a PhD. I don't know how he got it. It's because there was a strong foundation there. Maria was there to take care of the kids and to take care of the family, and actually to make sure that there's the sustainability and viability. All I can say is that George is probably not here with us physically, but his spirit is with us, because I think the BMF is still pursuing those objectives that George wanted to pursue. And maybe one day we'll be able to achieve those objectives. So that's all I have to say about George.
Thank you very much, President. That was profound, President. Really, President Negota was indeed a true transformational leader and true entrepreneurial leader. And definitely, as South Africans, we wish we could have better leader of his caliber. And as we embrace the Black economic empowerment and transformation that President Jack Negota was advocating, we as BMF managers, we still have a duty to fulfill his intention by fighting every faction's corruption, and everything that goes with it. So next item, we are going to watch the video that was compiled by BMF for the past 3 annual lectures. Thank you very much for that video. We really celebrating the true leader indeed. For the next item, we welcome Danduleni Negota from the family.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can hear you.
Can hear you, Yellow.
Yes. So it's not Harold per se. It's I'm Danduleni Negota. Harold could not join. And then I am now representing the family on his behalf. So basically, Harold is the younger brother to George Negota. So I'm just a nephew to George. So on behalf of the family program director, if you allow me, I would like to thank everyone, for affording me the opportunity to just pass the vote of thanks, during this 4th annual memorial lecture for the late George Negota. May all the stakeholders who participated in this event be seen as those who stood behind George, those who were behind George and were with him, as we heard from Ubabu Ncube there to say, they were together during the struggle. And during that time, it was not as easy as we are having it now, and we would like to thank, everyone for giving us the opportunity. And also just to, on behalf of the family again, just to say, we highly appreciate the work that the organizers have put together for this memorial. We understand that it has not been easy. I have been fortunate to be privy of the communication between in the group where, one person, the things that were happening. But, we managed to start on time today. We are having all the people that are supposed to speak. And I would like to say big ups to the, to the organizers, and also, program director. We know the challenges that our country is facing, the challenges that we are facing. Even earlier, I didn't think that I'll make it, because of the load shedding, and I keep on going out because now 1 minute the generator does not have a petrol. I have to go fill it up and all those challenges. But be that as it may, we are here. And we are very thankful. I managed to hear most of what was said, looking through the videos. It just brought the memories through all the last 3, annual lectures, even during the COVID, it just shows the dedication and the commitment that BMF has on this event, and we would like to urge that you continuously do so. We understand that because of the challenges, we know that previously, we had spoken about, every now and then having a lecture at some of the universities that, George, was once either participated as a student, as a learner, or in whatever form that he participated in. And those include, but not limited to, the University of Limpopo, the University of Venda, so that, maybe one day when we are able to have a physical one, one day we might find ourselves having one of them at that side. But we do understand that, it was not possible at the moment. But we still really appreciate that, year in, year out, the BMF and the entire team is still able to bring this together, and without wasting much time, program director, once more, we just want to say, as the Negota family, we are very much happy in terms of how you managed to put this together. And we hope that, it will be likewise for those, for all the other lecturers as well. And we again want to say, may his soul rest in peace. And as we continue together in our partnership with the BMF to make his memory stay alive. I thank you, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Ndaduleni. Indeed, may his soul rest in peace. Thank you so much for Negota family also for allowing us as BMF to share the life of President Negota. He was indeed a true leader, and then he will multiply indeed. Without wasting much time, let me allow the vote of thanks from BMF Limpopo Secretary Ramani Mulangapuma. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Program Director. I would like to appreciate the fact that even though we contacted President Ncube at really 11th hour, he came forth and delivered such a beautiful message from the heart because he knew Mr. Negota very well and he worked with him. So for that, we are grateful, Dr. Ncube. We do not take this very lightly. And also I would like to appreciate Daisy for running this program smoothly. Initially, when you went off, some of us got worried, but thanks very much for coming back and running the program. I would also like to appreciate our provincial chairperson, Mr. Mpomutse. He really took whatever he could to ensure that this really happens. And we really appreciate your effort, Mr. Mutse, for the work that you have done with the head office, with Kulu there, to ensure that we have this event finally tonight. And also, I would like to appreciate Mr. Negota. Sometimes or most of the times, when you want to appreciate people that are your forebears, normally the families will be saying, no, what's in it for us? Others will actually even expect to be paid when you want to honor one of your own. So we really appreciate the Negota family for having given us this opportunity to make sure that they do not really celebrate the life of Mr. George Negota alone, but we also jointly celebrate this life as members of the BMF and community at large. Thanks very much. Even to those who were able to log in and attend. I know it's really challenging because electricity, where I am now at 7 o'clock, electricity will be going into load shedding for 2 hours. So really, we appreciate that even under the circumstance, people are able to still sacrifice and make sure that they become part of this event. So thanks very much. We really appreciate. And again, to Dr. Ncube, we are grateful for your coming forth and ensuring that we get this message delivered from the heart. Thanks very much and much appreciated. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, I hope next year will be much better, but thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.